1/4 inch by 1.5 inch, and it's about 9 inches long. And I've already done some pre-grinding on it, kind of make a billet of sorts. And we're going to do a really short tomahawk wrapped eye axe. It's actually going to be a special order for my Etsy channel. Someone requested a wrapped eye axe, and they wanted it a shorter body on it so they could carry it in a pack. So that's what we're going to work on today. I got this pre-done. I already got a bit pre-formed, and we'll go ahead and wrap this up, forge weld it, and hopefully get something that the customer's going to like. And today I'm going to try out this new hammer. This was sent to me from Kyle Jones, and I resized this eye. This is it's an old hammer, but it had a really small eye in the hammer, so I drifted that out and got a handle on it, and it's coming in around 2 pounds with the handle. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this a try. The head weighed 1 pound 12 ounces, so with the handle it's probably over around 2 pounds. So we're gonna give this a try, see how this thing works out, and get the forge hot, bring it back, and get this thing made. This is actually the first time I've swung this hammer. So everything's still cold, it's cooling down quick. We'll go ahead and put a taper on the front. It's kind of weird, I'm just not used to swinging such a light hammer. So we seem to be moving the metal pretty good. I've learned about making these, not to go too thin on this taper before the forge welding. You get it too thin, you just can't get that edge out here to weld very good. So she forges a little bit lumpy, probably because of the really small face on it. So I'm going to go ahead and clean all that up with my finishing hammer, then we'll do the other side. Alright, we're on the other side. The trick here is to get it to look like this side. Biggest problem with that is you're hitting it upside down, backwards. So the metal moves a little bit different. So when I get the taper, I'll have to flip it over, make it match this side. I don't know if that makes any sense. Alright, so to try to get these to match, when I came out, forged this way, but on the first side it was this way. So I'm going to flip it over and forge it from the other side while holding the work on the taper up in the back on the taper that I just forged. And this will bring it into being pretty close. It'll bring it into being pretty close to this side. So this is just mild steel, so I can hit it black. Alright, something I like to do when I make these is I like to thin out the center where the eye is going to be. I think it just makes a cleaner look when it's wrapped around the handle. Forging with that 2-pound hammer, it takes some getting used to. So I went ahead and picked up a 3-pound hammer. So now we're ready to wrap this thing. Try to find center. We'll get the wrap started on the horn. And she's going to go all wonky on you. Just kind of have to eyeball it until you get it close. So hopefully with any luck, they look pretty close to the same. And they're not bad. Not too bad. So this is what we're going to wind up with. He said he wanted 3 inches from the front of the handle to the end, so of course this will be ground back. So let's get this straightened up a little bit closer. Get this hole here for the eye closer to the size of the drift. Alright, so the closer you get this to the size of the drift, the better off you're going to be in the long run. So before any forge weld, try to get it close. So I'll get it about halfway up the drift, and then we'll start to think about forge welding. Alright, so of course, as you do this, the eye is going to want to open up because nothing's welded. Another thing that's going to happen, it's going to want to come off center, and one side will try to get longer than the other. I had to modify my drift for the new handles I'm getting from Crazy Horse. I was getting the handles from hatchetsandaxes.com, but they got way too expensive. So something had to give. Not that the handles are smaller, but the taper on those handles is a lot faster. So it starts to taper pretty much from the top all the way to the bottom versus the axes and hatchet handles that I were getting. The taper wasn't so aggressive. So I'm going to do this a couple more times, get a little bit higher, and then we're going to think about getting everything cleaned up and ready for a forge weld. Alright, so we got it wrapped. Got it coming about halfway up the drift. As you can see, it is a really short wrap die hatchet, and I left it open. I'm going to get cleaned up in here, probably get some flux in there, and now for the part that most people probably call cheating, I'm going to put it in the vise. I'm going to put a MIG weld bead across the back of the eye, and I'm going to put a MIG weld bead about 1 inch up on the body and down in here about 1 inch up, and that's going to seal this tomahawk body, so when I begin to forge weld, it's going to keep the oxygen out. So I've had pretty good success with this method. All that MIG weld gets ground off with the finished product, but yeah, I've had pretty good success forge welding like this, especially in my forge, which in my opinion doesn't get quite hot enough to get effective forge weld. It will forge weld, but for something like an impact tool, something I'm going to sell on my channel, this is just what I do. So call it cheating, call it whatever you want, don't matter to me, but this is the way I do it. And plus it actually speeds up the forge welding process. So I'm going to go ahead and get all that done off camera, because it's just grinding on the belt sander inside and putting a couple MIG beads on it. So, but we will bring you back when we're ready to start forge welding. Alright, so I got the back of the eye welded. Now I'm going to sprinkle in some flux. It's going to go on the body, weld this body together. And this is some magic sprinkle dust that I won at Bar Run Forge, that the world famous Bill Corey donated. So we're going to get some flux in here. I'm going to close this gap up a little bit, and then I'm going to put a weld seam here and here, and I'm going to forge weld everything out the front. Closing this thing up. That looks pretty good. I'll do my weld seams and we'll be ready to do some forge welding. Alright, we're ready to crank up the pressure and get it back in the fire. So again, call it what you will. The front is open. Got a bead here and a bead here. I sealed across the back of the eye. Now we're going to go ahead and start forge welding and hopefully get this little short section to stick. So this is going to be a very, very short hawk, as you can see, and not a lot of body there. So I'm going to go ahead and get this back in the fire, jack up the pressure, and make the magic happen. let this cool down. I'm gonna watch it as it cools. See if I got any kind of weird shadows where I know the seams are. And then we'll get this thing over to the belt sander and grind all this excess bit off. And we'll be ready for the final shaping and getting the eye drifted out. So you always get a little bit here on the edges. It's kind of unavoidable, I found. But a lot of that gets ground back anyways. So the anvil sucked the heat out of that already. But I'm not getting any shadows in the main body or down here in the center. Another thing that can happen too, that I've had happen, is you actually get a bubble form. Once you know there's a bubble there, then you know some kind of contaminant got in the forge weld and it just won't allow it to stick. Maybe some sort of gas trying to release. So I've had that a few times. And at that point, you just kind of got to break the bubble and hope for the best. Alright, so here it is after the profile. I cut all the excess bit off. Go ahead and show you the seams. Seams look good. Here, here, down through here and up here. And we got a seam right here where the bit comes to about right here. So this thing's ready to be, we're going to start working on the eye, get that drifted out, finish forging the edge, and it'll be ready for heat treat. It's still a little hot. Alright, now I'm going to start working it up to drift. And I found here the key is to forge around the drift versus just hammering it in. Everything's cold again, so it's going to cool off quick. I'm going to drop her in. Drive her in there a little bit. stop the forging right here. I will show you the final profile. Then that'll probably wrap up this video. The forging I hope is done. Still got to grind back a little bit, make sure all the seams and everything look good. But yeah, for the most part, I think this forging is done. I'm gonna sit here and watch it cool off, and then we'll kind of go from there. When I was drifting the eye, I did have a separation right up here behind the eye. That's always a challenge with these. Went back to forge welding temperatures and used the magic powder, and I got everything closed back up, and it looks like everything's cooling down kind of nice. I don't have any kind of weird shadows, and it feels like one piece of metal under the hammer. So I'm going to go ahead and turn you off, and we'll get this thing profiled, we'll show it off, and that'll be this video. Alright, here is the Hawk. It has been heat treated, ground, everything, whole 9 yards. Got a preliminary edge on it, still needs to be stoned. It's fitted to the handle. I got the handle over there soaking in linseed oil, and yeah, hopefully the guy who wanted this likes it, and it'll be off in the mail. And if he decides that he doesn't like it, then it might wind up on the store. So you never know. Keep your eyes peeled for it. But we're going to go ahead and stop this video, and I'll get you a few close-ups. And but before I do, I want to say thanks for stopping by. Remember to check out my Etsy store if you're interested in anything like this. And if not, just stop by, favorite an item, and say you were there, and say hi and all that good stuff. So, all right, I'm going to shut y'all down and get you some close-ups, and we'll see you on the next one.